and welcome. You're watching Financial Planner, and over the next 30 minutes we'll talk about insurance. The last few episodes have been about investments and what one needs to do in order to create wealth. But what's also very important in terms of building a financial plan is having the right amount of insurance. To talk to us about this, Feroze Azeez of Anand Rathi joins in. Thanks, Feroze, for coming by today. Feroze, last few episodes have been all about investments, creating wealth, preserving wealth. But we've not talked about one of the other stalwarts of a financial plan, and that is insurance. I mean, uncertainty is a given in life, right? So tell us about what is insurance, and then we'll of course go into the different types of insurance available.
Correct. I think, like you rightly pointed out, insurance is a very important aspect of financial planning because most walk of lives, we have plan A and a plan B. And then you have something to fall back upon if the plan A doesn't work as envisaged. So in a financial plan as well, you might definitely want to envisage a journey which is not having rough edges. But what God has planned for you might not be something which you can comprehend. So you have to create a plan B. So insurance, to my mind, is a plan B of different aspects which can actually act as surprises in your financial life.
How important is an insurance? I mean, is it important when you get older in life? Is it important to get insurance as early as you start your career? Is it important to take on an insurance plan only if you've got responsibilities? Can you break that down for us, the clear importance of having an insurance plan in place?
Correct. I think this very important thing, in the sense, understanding whether you need insurance or not. Okay, that's been actually misread by several financial planners as well. If you have your liabilities superseding your assets, the gap between liabilities, if your liability is this much in the form of goals and your asset is this much, the gap needs to be bridged in the form of insurance. Okay. If at some point in time your assets supersede your liabilities, that means you have more money than you can ever spend in your goals, then that day you have to discontinue your insurance. And in spite of actually having committed to some term plan, you need to discontinue then and say now since my assets have superseded my liabilities, I don't need insurance. To answer your question, there's little correlation to age. There's more correlation to the gap between what you need and what you currently have. Okay. If there's a gap, then you need to bridge that gap.
Very common, I think retail investors get mixed up and they start believing insurance is a proxy to investments. And a lot of times they sold an insurance policy and they actually believe that an insurance works out as an investment plan. Please tell our viewers that that is a completely wrong prodigy of investing or getting an insurance plan. I guess both need to be kept very separate from each other, right?
Yes. I think, like in India, insurance and investments have been clubbed. I think it's a very bad idea. Why is it a bad idea? Because if you pursue two objectives using one instrument, you might suboptimally meet both those objectives, right? So much so that the investment, we analyzed 2,000 insurance policies, and that's not a few. The return has turned out to be 4.56%. Oh. And the insurance cover has been 7 times lesser than what he could have got ideally using a plain one objective. So you've met your investment objectives significantly lower than what you could have, and your insurance objectives 1/7 of what you could have met with the same money. So both these objectives have not got met. So critical item to be taken care of when you're buying insurances, it should not be mixed. Unfortunately in India, because commissions paid by insurance companies to these clubbed investment and insurance policies is almost 4, 5, 6 times more than what they would be paid for something else. Yeah. So it's commission-driven advice. I'm being very straight about it, and that's the reason why India has bought more of these kind of plans than the rest of them, which are more relevant.
Right. Well, in that case, Feroze, tell us about the types of insurance that are even useful to begin with and even possibly, appropriate, because there are so many insurance policies out there. Forget policies, types of insurance out there that one might subscribe to or one might not. So in terms of what's important, what is the most important insurance that one needs to get, which is probably compulsory, and what about the rest of the gamut?
Great. So there are about 3 heads under which insurance should be considered. One where you actually, as God plans your life to be shorter than the expected life. Okay. So that's life insurance. If for living too less. Okay. Right? And then the actually expected life, which is today about 78, 80 is the life expectancy. That's life insurance. Then second is where you actually live, but you get a medical expense, and that needs to be covered. So that's health insurance, in which there are two categories. One is buying it for yourself as an individual, or buying it for the entire family. As we progress, family floaters, as they call it, it does not just insures me, we get a family cover.
Right.
So parents, dependents in the form of children and spouse, all of them are covered, and there's a limit for the entire family. So that's family floater. And the third category is critical illness. If you have an illness which puts you out of your career, and then you need to survive on a corpus for 4, 5, 6, 7 years because your illness doesn't permit you to work anymore. That just does not just cover your medical expenses, but also covers the fact that now you are not capable of working and you need money still to make sure you are taken care of and you're dependent. So these are the three heads.
And I just want to bring up one aspect. Of course, we'll talk about it in a little more detail later on. Most organizations provide some sort of a health insurance. Now, is that enough? Or do you need to do more about that?
Valid point. If you're an employer, your employer as an employee provides you a specific medical cover, a health cover, so that your hospitalization is covered. Most often than not, in this rising inflation of medical expenses, that doesn't become sufficient. And since it's a group employee cover, there are so many nuances to it which might not take care. For example, if you are wanting a specific kind of a room, your covers on your expenses could come down to half. So since there's so much customization possible in health insurance, getting yourself a specific health cover is critical, and to make sure that everybody else in your family is also covered. So net, the employer's cover needs to be evaluated from a case-to-case basis, and if that does not suffice, then you should make sure that you get that differential cover by yourself.
And critical illness insurance, is that recommended at an early age, or is it as you progress in life, it's probably what one needs to do? What I'm trying to ask you is, does a 25-year-old who's just had a job need to get a critical illness insurance?
In my opinion, it's very important for critical illnesses to be bought in the early part of life.
Because you really don't know with life.
Yeah,
right?
and then you have longer periods to cover, and you have a longer period till retirement. So it's important. See, if somebody is at the age of 55, 50, if he takes critical illness, he has only 5-7 years of working life.
Right.
So critical illness can impact him lesser than a 30-year-old who has 27, 28 years of working life. So a critical illness especially should be bought young. One phenomena of the insurance industry is the sooner you buy it, the cheaper it is. The second phenomena is, as we progress and it becomes a competitive environment, insurance is getting cheaper by the day. So it also becomes critical for you to be a little more dynamic in terms of evaluating your insurance policies, because regulations are rapidly changing on that one.
Right, and I guess the most important one is life insurance, which we'll talk about in the next segment. So we'll take a break, we'll come back, and we'll talk to you about the importance of life insurance and, of course, the various policies available out there for you. Welcome back. You're watching Financial Planner, and we talked about why insurance is important, or rather a very important aspect of a financial plan. We'll now talk about the most important insurance, which is life insurance. Feroze, we talked about this in the previous segment of the various types of insurance that one needs to look at, and it clearly is obvious that life insurance is the most important insurance that is required by anyone and everyone. Can you tell us about the importance of life insurance and who all need this?
See, I think it's important to have life insurance. Why? Because if there is a death in your family, the dependents and the family is already going through an emotional trauma. That clubbed with a financial trauma is a mammoth task to deal with. So it's important to make sure that when a person is going through an emotional turmoil, you also don't give him a financial trauma. So that can, if it can be addressed by you in your lifetime, should you actually do it? 100% you should do it. Who should do it? The guys who have more liabilities than their assets should definitely do it. Now, life insurance, of course, have a few types. What should you do and what not you should do is also an important aspect to take care of, because it's a confusing space. So many service providers and thousands of insurance policies. And to build momentum, all these companies come up with newer and newer schemes to entice people to join them. So how does somebody simplify this whole spectrum is important.
Feroze, if one doesn't have dependents, which is very rare, does the life insurance still fit the bill?
If he doesn't have dependents at all, no, then of course not. But at some stage when he has more dependents.
And I guess if he's wealthier than his liabilities, then as well, life insurance may not. But that's again a very small section of society that would be blessed in that way.
Life insurance always needs a nominee. Okay, if you don't have a dependent, then you don't have a nominee.
Are nominees transferable?
Nominees in your lifetime can change, definitely can change, provided the person who owns the insurance goes through the process of diligence to change the actual beneficiary of the insurance
And
policy.
I guess that's where audit comes in, and we'll talk about that in the third segment. But there are various ways one can buy life insurance, either through the online way or the offline way. What is it that you recommend? Is it better to do it through an agent, or is it easier to do it through a computer?
See, point one is that it is better done online. Agents, the middlemen, have a very huge commission in the insurance industry. So much so, little do Indians know that a mutual fund, for example, pays 1% commission. But an insurance policy, the maximum commission could be 40%.
Oh.
So that's 40 times more than mutual funds. Now, if you eliminate the intermediary, then this benefit largely gets passed on to the client. So if you buy it online, the cost of insuring yourself on an identical kind of a benefit would come down 20-30%. So missing out the opportunity of this benefit, because it's a commoditized product, would not be prudent at all. Would anybody propagate? The answer is no, because there's a huge vested interest when it comes to insurance advice being given.
I want to come back on that commission angle, right? Why is it that if a product as important as insurance pay back or give a kickback to a middleman of 40%? It doesn't make sense, because if this is one of the most important policies that one needs to take out or look after, why does it give such a heavy kickback?
See, fortunately, we are going towards a better regulated commission on the platform of commission. Now, 40 might be an aberration today, but it was a norm. 50 was a norm 5 years back. Okay, without which an insurance agent would not want to market that product. That's the kind of transformation we've seen. Today, the average would be 20-25%. 40 would be an aberration, where 5 years back we were at 45-50. Why should this happen? Because the company actually knows that this money is going to be tied up for 8, 10, 15 years. The propensity for a company to pay that kind of money, because the client or the person who's buying the insurance is bound for 15 years, the propensity of the company to pay becomes very high. Unlike in a mutual fund, a person can invest and reverse his decision 6 months later, but an insurance policy,
you're locked in.
Yeah, so that's the reason why that kind of commissions existed. But IRDA is doing a good job in terms of bringing down cost and bringing down commissions to make it commensurate to the effort put in to source this policy.
Right. Feroze, let's talk about the value and the benefit of finally taking an insurance plan, as if the people you leave behind do not struggle to make these claims for all that you've, contributed to that policy for the last 15, 20 years, like you said. So that brings me to my next question. How important is settlement ratio? Because at the end of the day, insurance companies only make it harder for a dependable to go out and claim.
Correct. In life insurance, settlement ratio is very critical. Because if it's health insurance, there are today cashless insurance. So a person does not have to go through the hassle post having made the expense. But unfortunately, life insurance settlement claim the ratio has to be as high as it could be. So I would not mind paying 2, 3, 4% higher premium for a company which has had the best settlement ratios, because otherwise the purpose is not being served. So is settlement ratio an important criteria before you make a choice of life insurance policies, which generally doesn't happen? And if somebody is recommending, he's recommending on the basis of how much commission he's getting, not on the basis of the settlement claim ratio. So this question, if not asked to your agent, then you have left your job undone. So it's important.
So in terms of your understanding, which are the insurance companies that are a lot more credible than the other ones? I'm guessing the old school ones still would feature on top of the list, so the LICs of the world?
I think HDFC life insurance is one of the best settlement claim ratios. And there are, Aegon Religare has been very, very quick, and the ratio has been reasonably good.
Right. How long does the process of starting to purchase an insurance plan to actually achieving or obtaining an insurance plan in place take?
See,
I mean, how quick is the process? Because mutual funds usually are much quicker, right? It's so much easier to make an investment than an insurance.
Correct. Insurance, if you buy the insurance online, then automatically the process has become simpler, and the turnaround time to actually achieve your objective of having the insurance plan is shorter. That brings us to the most important aspect, which is getting your health checked when you get the insurance. So many insurance agents prompt their investors to or their insurance buyers to say that let's skip the medical test and we can give a declaration that I have nothing wrong with me. That could be the biggest deterrent for your claim to be received. So it's important to spend that 2 hours to make the insurance policy foolproof. And if there is an eventuality, the settlements of all those insurance policies have actually gone through the medical test and certification is much better. So point one is the turnaround time can be reduced, but medical test, you should not compromise on the medical test being done to bring down the time to as little as it could be.
Is this medical test a one-off for term insurance, or do you just want to have to revisit that every few years to sort of change the policy maybe?
Actually, fortunately, you just have to do this test once in a lifetime. If you bought an insurance policy which is going to last you 30 years, you are already being checked once, and then the insurer has no right.
It's better to do it the earlier the better, because most people are healthier when they're younger as opposed to when they're older, right?
And quite a few times this happens that you've bought an insurance policy, 5 years later you've become a smoker.
Yeah.
And then you've still locked in the insurance premiums of a non-smoker, and your insurer does not have the right to change the premium as per your changing habits.
Do you recommend life insurance plans for young parents? I'm asking you this because if that is the case, and if it's going to last your lifetime, it may just be a good idea to start very early on in age, right?
Correct. So if you have a young child, then automatically there is a larger responsibility. So young parents, so definitely they should have life insurance cover, because if there's more money left for the child, then he's protected for the inflation he will go through his lifetimes. Yeah. If you look at education, for example, it's 11% inflation during our lifetime. What if we go through a situation where there's 18% inflation on education? He will still be protected. So having an insurance for a young parent is as important, or even more.
We'll take a break on that, and we'll come back. We'll talk about the other types of life insurance like endowment and ULIPs, and also talk about the other insurance plans. So this is getting beyond life insurance, so stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Financial Planner. We'll continue talking about a very interesting subject and relatively important in a financial plan, that is insurance. Feroze, in our previous segment, we talked about the importance of a term plan and the best way to purchase an insurance plan. I want to talk about two other sort of policies under life insurance beyond term plan, which is traditional and ULIP. Before we took this break, you said that you clearly deter investors and our viewers from taking any of these two policies. Can you tell me why you're so against traditional and ULIP, and why the only thing that's recommended in life insurance is a term plan?
Correct. For two big reasons. One is that we did an analysis to find out what kind of value destruction this combination can have. So if you have invested in a plan which has both, like for example ULIP, which tries to get you insurance and investment both, then you would automatically have 3 times or 4 times lesser the maturity value if you actually compared it with mutual fund and a term plan, which is a combination working far better than a ULIP. So ULIPs and endowments have destroyed immense value for people. If you combined a term plan with a mutual fund to achieve the same objective, you would be left with 4 times more the maturity value. And that's the least I'm saying. There have been instances when we have done this analysis, and people have got 7 times less than the maturity value they could have got by segregating them. So 4 to 7 times, if you're going to have an end point of 8 lakh rupees, for example, if you combine mutual fund and term plan, you would have been left with 40 lakhs, 30 lakhs. 1 crore almost. So combining them could be a very, very big detriment to your portfolio. So ULIPs and endowments or traditional plans, as they are also called, are a complete no-no, and you would not miss anything by skipping these for a lifetime.
And I think in traditional and ULIP is where there's the mis-selling that really often takes place, right? Because I know till a few years ago, ULIPs had become a very popular instrument that a lot of people were subscribing to.
Correct. Because of the high commission rates, they were pushed largely. But now that we are on the topic of mis-selling, it's important to highlight to the viewers that after every insurance policy is bought, there is a free look period where a person can return the policy irrespective of he having paid the money. So that free look period is something which is very important, and little do people know of it. So if you think that there's been a mis-sale 15 days into the policy, you can actually respond, get back your money and reverse this decision. If you miss that free look period, then you can't reverse this decision for 5 big years at least.
As long as the courier comes in time, right? It was on a lighter note. But just moving on from life insurance, what is your take on general insurance? So talk about health and talk about critical. For me, the importance of both of these as well in a financial plan.
So health insurance is very important. As we spoke briefly, medical inflation is on the rise, and like how. So that needs to be covered. Hospitalization is becoming more and more expensive because as a country we have fewer hospitals for a growing population of this size. So covering your health is very important because there will be pre-hospitalization, post-hospitalization expenses like tests, and after tests there are medicines. So there are insurance policies which cover you through this life cycle. So getting yourself an health insurance will keep you far safer and not put your financial plan out of the path you wanted it to be. So in that, it's important that you take care of this health insurance at a lower age and take a larger cover. One feature of health insurance is that the first 5 lakhs is very expensive. The second 5 lakhs is only 1/3 the expense you pay for the first 5 lakhs. So getting yourself a 15 lakh cover is not going to be 3 times the cost of getting a 5 lakh cover. Might be just 40% more than the first 5 lakhs. So get yourself adequately covered because the incremental value to be paid in the form of premium is not as much as the first few lakhs.
Right. Also, in terms of health insurance, are there any sort of different types of plans one can look at, or you just generally go after health insurance and whatever suits you really?
See, beyond your employer's insurance which has been provided, you should not look at an individual plan at all. You should look at a family floater, in which, to understand it in a very small fashion or a brief fashion, your family is covered. For example, for an amount of 10 lakh rupees in that financial year. If one of the person has actually used up 7 lakhs, then there's only 3 more lakhs left.
For the rest of the family.
So that becomes a very least expense because there are 4 people being covered, and so it's far more cost efficient.
What about critical illness? How important or how critical is this?
See, critical illness is the treatment. If you've been detected with a critical illness, one is the expense of treating that, and the second is not being able to earn after having that detection. So these two both need to be covered. So a critical illness policy can give you a lump sum 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs to live your normal life, and can also cover the medical expense. And the expenses are not too much. It's in the range of 4,000 to 5,000 rupees for every 10 lakhs. So if you cover yourself for 20 lakhs, unfortunately, unlike health insurance, here it will be a proportionate increase of premium, not a reduced diminishing insurance. So you should cover yourself for at least 4 to 5 times your annual salary, so that if there is a critical illness, it will take you those 3, 4, 5 years to come back out of it, and that needs to be covered.
Right, Feroze, also most people review their mutual fund portfolio very often because it's always good to know how much wealth you're making. Very rarely do people take this insurance policy seriously, and the review is not as often. Responsibilities change, time goes by. How important is audit of your insurance portfolio?
This is like music to my ears, because I've been trying to tell people that if you've bought an insurance policy 10 years back, does it merit an audit? Because you've collected so many insurance policies, an average insurance policy portfolio would have about 5-7 of them. All of them might not be relevant today because you bought them with a specific objective. And now the objectives have changed, the objectives have come closer, the value of the objective has changed. That's one. Second, the regulation has gone through a paradigm shift in the last 3, 4, 5 years. if I don't audit, I might be paying 5 times more than a new investor must be paying, or a new insurance holder must be paying. So does it merit an audit? The third is that it's important to audit because there are newer companies who have joined this bandwagon of providing insurance, and there's competitiveness which has come. So regulation, competition, and your own internal reasons of your dependence increasing or your dependence decreasing because now your child is good enough to earn for himself. So audit is the most important thing, and the value you would create for yourself if you audited and corrected this path is very important, because insurance policies can be removed after 3, 4, 5 years of having invested.
Right. Well, we're completely out of time, so thanks for watching, but keep it with the channel.